Chapter 11. The Party to End All Parties. The next day we woke up full of excitement. After breakfast, Darling asked us to help set up festoons of bunting all over the beach. And of course, Jax and her students were busy building the physics of enchantment into everything. There were swings that hung from the sky, Christmas beetles that delivered canapes, and tiny drinks for the time fairies, and little hummingbirds that delivered snacks to all of us. There were special ice spas scattered everywhere for the large contingent of penguins who'd been invited from the land of ice and fire. A magic stage kept emerging and disappearing as it was needed, and Jax had created 7 massive water slides. One of Miguel's favourite things is water sliding, so even though he had to be lifted up to the top of the water slide to start with, a group of friends kept helping all night. Of course, we all had to have quite a few practice runs just in case the slides weren't working properly. The best thing about Jax's slides are that she designs them to be unpredictable, so that night they'd suddenly leap up into the air and change course, lengthening to make the ride longer and curving unexpectedly to make the ride more fun. And if the slide spotted a school of dolphins in the Indigo Sea, they'd dump you there, and then the dolphins would take you on another wild ride. When it was early evening, we headed back to our treehouse to get changed. On the way, Sky said, "What are we going to give Miguel?" We all stopped and looked at one another. "What can we give him?" I asked. "It's not like he especially loves anything." "But it would be horrible to have nothing," said Minnow. We felt terrible about forgetting to arrange a gift for Miguel, and in the end, we started to come up with some wild ideas. "What about a massive box of spuds?" asked Frank. "Potatoes?" asked Minnow. "No, those coconut sweets rolled in cocoa," said Frank. "Yes," I said, "he loves those." He gave them to Sky after she took the lead for the first time in the Noesis. "Where would we find them?" asked Sky. "And anyway, maybe they're not that special to him," added Minnow. We all sat pondering. 3 birds raced into our treehouse and squealed when they saw us, and then they zoomed straight back out. Just as they were leaving, 6, Jem and Max flew in and crash-landed in the middle of us. "You look sad," announced Max. 6 and Jem agreed. "There's a party," said 6. "Liven up," said Jem. "We haven't got Miguel a birthday gift," I said. The 3 little girls looked worried. "Oh no," said 6. "We haven't got him anything either." Jem and Max sighed. "How selfish are we?" asked Max. "Very," said Jem. We all sat there thinking. 6 stood up with a huge smile on her face. "What about shoes?" she asked. "Great idea," said Frank. "But where are the shops?" "I haven't seen any," said Jem. I shook my head. "We'll have to ask Jax," I said. "Surely Miguel will get the use of his legs back soon, and shoes would be the best gift of all. He'd love them." "Dancing shoes," said Sky. "Yes," said Minnow. "He told me that he loves an old band called Smash Mouth." "Should we write Smash Mouth on the shoes?" asked Frank. "But how?" Sky suddenly beamed. "Magic," she said, waving her hands over her clothes and changing them. "We have clothing magic," said Minnow, putting her arms up into the air. "We do too," shouted Jem and 6. "Me as well," said Max. "We can dream up the shoes." "Excellent," I said. "But what size?" "We've got to find Jax," said Minnow. "She'll know." We ran to Jax's workshop and found her finishing off a big surprise for Miguel, a jukebox that would play any song from anywhere in the universe anytime he wanted it. It doubled as a pinball machine, and the characters painted on it were all from The Pinball Wizard, an old movie that my dad loves, and clearly Miguel loves it as well. "Magic," said Frank. "The physics of enchantment," said Jax, looking proud of herself. Solo and Escher turned up and oohed and ahed, asking if they could please test it out. When we told Jax about the shoes, she said no drama. Sky and Min can imagine them into being with their clothes magic. As for size, it's Magal's birthday, so Megalian magic is in the air. The shoes will turn out exactly as he'd love them, and they'll be a perfect fit. Just start to describe what you think would work. "Red," said Sky. "With fire," added Minnow. "And wings on the back," I said. "And springs and wheels in the soles, so that he can leap up or speed along as fast as he wants," said Frank. "And purple shoelaces," added Solo. "And cameras that shoot out from the side to video things as he runs along." "And music," said Jax. "Inbuilt songs, all his favourites, 1,111 of them." "Jukebox jiving shoes," said Sky. We all stood up and threw our hands up into the air. Booyah! The shoes appeared, hovering in midair. They looked very naughty, as if they'd like to get going and cause all sorts of havoc. They were spectacular. Jax made the best carry box for them, covered with pictures of everything that Magal loves. We left her workshop feeling like royalty. It was going to be a very good 1,111th party. We ran back to the treehouse to put on some party clothes. The girls used their magic to dress themselves, but Frank and I had put zero thought into preparing for the party, so we weren't ready at all. Sky and Minnow wore their favourite matching outfits, dark red tunics with dark blue trousers. Except for the occasion, they were made from shimmering shot silk. Both girls added face glitter, and Sky dusted her wings with gold dust. Minnow added fake wings, but why not? They wanted to be twins for the night. Sky could see that I was lost, so she used her clothes magic to quickly dream up some wild party clothes for me, and Minnow did the same for Frank. We ended up looking like a cross between astronauts and deep-sea divers, but in cloth that let us move well. And of course, as the night wore on, we ditched our helmets. Six, Jem and Max had already gone ahead of us wearing tutus in all the colours of the rainbow. "Hurry," said Minnow. "I don't want to be late." When we were ready, we grabbed our gift and headed down to the beach. It was still light because the islands of time have such a long twilight, and the air was so warm. Everyone was swimming, using the water slides and diving off all the platforms that Jax had created all along the beach. At the end of our last book, The Time Virus, Sky wrote in the epilogue, "Sometime into the future," although not that far because we'd only just finished writing about our first adventure. We were all invited back to a huge party to welcome in the new millennium. Well, what I'm about to describe is us actually going to that very feast, because Magal's 1,111th birthday party was also a party to welcome in the new millennium. It was very exciting. As you can imagine, with Darling in charge, there was food everywhere. Guests had come from all over the universe, famous wizards and angels, little children who know how to heal sickness, giants and ice witches, pink flamingos and pet penguins, tiny fairies who are as fierce as anything, and wild ghosts who are allowed to eat and drink again. They get so happy when their bodies are returned that their shouts sound like a million waves crashing onto rocks. Ribbons and streamers and candles were floating around in the air, and bees and sparklers. There were so many things wafting about. Christmas beetles still flew around with tiny treats for the time fairies, and little angels and hummingbirds had treats for everyone else. And food was also flowing about freely. Of course, all around there were gigantic platters just hovering in the air, and whenever anyone took some of the food, it just appeared again. So good. A heap of Jax's students were on the beach, playing in a feral band, and before long we were all dancing and flying and swimming. Marescimar parties are the best fun ever. As well as all the new millennium joy, one giant of an angel was celebrating the eve of his 1,111th birthday. So there were huge birthday cakes all over the place. But because they were decorated with wild warrior fireworks, hardly anyone dared to eat them for fear of being blasted mid-mouthful. Blizzard and Miguel shouted a big hello to us. "Blizzard," I yelled. "Miguel, how are you?" "Great party," said Frank. "Happy birthday." Frank and I both hugged Miguel, who shot several skyrockets from the stash he had taped all around his wheelchair. Blizzard tapped me on the shoulder. "I have a friend who'd like to meet you and Frank," said Blizzard. He moved aside to reveal Gandalf in his very best hat and finest robes. "Wonderful to meet you," said the wizard with a wry, crooked smile. I felt as if I was going to die on the spot, but Gandalf held my hand tight and started to tell me all about his latest adventures. He has the kindest eyes I've ever seen, and his stories are massively good. After listening to him, I felt as if I'd known him forever. Blizzard and Gandalf shared a pipe and blew strange smoke shapes from their mouths. "Don't worry," said Blizzard. "These are Jax's pipes, and they're only the physics of enchantment. No poison, no nicotine." "They're just perfect for shape-making," said Gandalf, breathing out a steamy dragon that became larger and finally turned back to us, blasting fire from its mouth. I ducked, but Gandalf tousled my hair. "All magic, my boy," he said. "Nothing to fear." Blizzard laughed. A Marescimar party would have to be one of the safest places in the universe. Gandalf nodded. "Indeed," he said, breathing out a squadron of time fairies who fluttered all around us, upsizing and downsizing effortlessly. I could have sworn that Goad was among them, but I couldn't be sure. "Now," said Blizzard, "remember when you met Barwiam?" "Yes," I said. "Want to know the origin of Gurnaim?" asked Blizzard. "Please," I said. "It's an acronym of sorts," said Gandalf, breathing on his pipe. "Before Abraham was," said Blizzard. "That makes the first bit B-A-W. I frowned. "Who's Abraham?" I asked. "Someone even older than me," said Gandalf. "A wizard of sorts. He's talked about in one of the ancient books of wisdom from your homeland. There's also an Abraham who lived in my kingdom for some time. She was a woman. Both Abrahams were very good people, with amazing legends that grew up around them. The point is that they were highly prized by the universe," said Blizzard. "They were known for being related to the King and Queen of Love, the ancient ones who first invented family and kindness and all of that." I nodded. "So B-A-W, but what does I-A-M stand for?" Gandalf grinned. "Well, I said it was an acronym of sorts, but the second half of the name is simply I am. So before Abraham, two lovely ancient people, even existed, the time game is saying that not only did I exist as well, but that Gi exists still and throughout all of time." I smiled. "Okay, weird, but good." "It's a strange idea to get your mind around," said Blizzard. "Barwiam chose a name that points to the fact that Gi has always existed throughout time. And will continue to exist?" I asked. It's a bit hard to argue with someone who simply says, "I am," and is also pretty much in charge of all time, said Gandalf, puffing out some smoke that formed into flying, dancing bears. I became completely distracted watching the steamy bears float up high and then cavort in a wild jig before linking their furry arms and dancing off into the distance. Blizzard blew out more steam that formed into the letters BAWIAM. They also grew little arms that linked before they danced this way and that, and then the letters shot up high into the air before zooming back down to shimmer before our eyes, and then they shot across the twilight sky, almost like a series of 6 shooting stars. "Bawiam," I whispered. "I love that name." Gandalf smiled at Blizzard and said, "So do we, son. So do we."